As both an African and an Afro-optimist, I have to admit, Africa is a mess, and it's because of our leaders. For all of our leaders' promises on agriculture, tourism, and global trade, we have only 4% of the global agriculture and tourism markets and 2% of global trade. We also have the lowest life expectancies, lowest rankings on World Bank's doing business indicators, and the lowest incomes per capita. So, what exactly does Africa top the charts in? Corruption. African leaders have mastered the art of corruption. In many African countries, corruption is part of the cost of doing business. More than half of the world's most corrupt countries are in Africa. Or we could say terrible economic policies. While other countries around the world optimize their economic policies to reduce risk and cost and increase productivity to increase competitiveness, entrepreneurship, and investment, African leaders are the best in the world at creating high cost, high risk, and low productivity environments to optimize for aid. We could also say foreign aid. While other countries around the world have strived to create systems that incentivize foreign direct investment, African leaders have excelled at keeping failing systems the way they are, just so they don't miss out on foreign aid. Just at a glance, it seems like Africa is the best at all the worst things and the worst at all the best things. There are many excuses that we as Africans give for our state. One big one is colonialism. Africans blame colonialism for many of our problems, and it is a part of our history. But why must it become so ingrained into our identity when other places like Vietnam, which was colonized by the Chinese, French, and Japanese for over 1,000 years, doesn't make it stand out as much? Another big one is inadequate aid. Europe was given the equivalent of $135 billion after it was decimated in World War II. It quickly rose up to become one of the most productive regions in the world's economy. Africa has been given $1.2 trillion in aid. Little has come of it, and we're still asking for more. A third major one is conflict. 3 million Vietnamese were killed in the US Vietnam War, 7% of the population. Yet Vietnam grew at 8% for 2 decades, while Africa struggled to sustain even half this growth. Just to put that in perspective, the World Bank estimates that Africa needs to grow at 5% per annum to keep up with population needs, and at least 7% to make progress in eradicating poverty. In other words, our economic growth is directly related to our ability to eradicate poverty, and that's the biggest problem in Africa. So when I say that leaders have failed Africa, I mean to say that they have failed to create and sustain environments that enable rapid economic growth. And I think there are two main reasons why our political elite have consistently made bad choices. Firstly, good choices for the good of everyone and not in their personal and financial interests. As we know, incentives drive the world, and as Charlie Munger said, show me the incentive and I will show you the outcome. Secondly, the African public has let them fail us. The African public isn't educated on what it means to have good leaders who make sound economic decisions for the good of everyone. In other words, the public doesn't know what to expect from government, so we can't keep them accountable. When Lee Kuan Yew became Singapore's Prime Minister in 1959, Singapore was a struggling post-colonial port city with high unemployment rates, widespread poverty, and rampant social unrest. When he left office in 1990, it was a thriving global financial hub with a booming economy, world-class infrastructure, and a highly educated workforce. When Robert Mugabe came into power as Zimbabwe's Prime Minister in 1980, Zimbabwe was a newly independent nation full of hope and promise. When he left power in 2017, it was a country plagued by economic collapse, political repression, and widespread corruption. The leaders that we have matter. Their decisions color the very nature of our lives. The choices they make become the systems that run the engines of our society. The only role of government is to create systems that enable the economy's growth, because growth translates into better living standards for their population over time. Lee Kuan Yew did this by creating systems that promoted security, eradication of corruption, and the ease of investment, entrepreneurship, and trade driven by the private sector. The result was that by 2008, 26,400 international corporations were on the island, and there were no signs of stopping. In contrast, international manufacturers like Cadbury, Eveready, and Samir Africa of Yana Tires are leaving a country like Kenya by the boatload due to uncompetitive tax and business environment, cheaper imports, and high cost of power. How can you attract more investors into your country if the ones who already invested are leaving? There lie some of the challenges that are killing African competitiveness in global enterprise: the suppression of the private sector. In many African countries, the private sector isn't really private. It's a system that elites use to illegitimately gain control over markets in order to extract high rents or even launder stolen money from African taxpayers. The tender system in countries like Kenya falls in this category as a legally sanctioned system to extract rents far higher than the free market would provide from public funds using politically connected participants of the private sector. Even in the limited situations where some independence exists in the private sector, African governments can be suspicious or even hostile to businesses, especially as they gain more influence with more success. In these cases, the governments are run by misguided or ignorant bureaucrats. Government is not in competition for power with the private sector. The government's job is to be a referee that creates the best environment for the players to play. A thriving private sector is the outcome of a good government, and a thriving private sector means more jobs, higher living standards, and more products and services that are cheaper and of better quality. There's no development without a thriving private sector. America is so wealthy because the systems were created by enterprising people for the good of enterprise. America's systems have created the ultimate platform for entrepreneurs to create things of value for others. That's how 6 of the 10 largest companies in the world are American. Microsoft is the largest of them all at the moment, with over $3 trillion in market cap. For perspective, that means that if Microsoft was a country, it would be the 10th largest economy on earth. It has created immense value for shareholders, investors, and employees, and the economy as a whole. That's the power of systems that create platforms for enterprise. They make everyone wealthier. The time to simply react to the poor decisions of African governments is over. We, the public and international community, have failed to keep leaders accountable, and their poor decisions are leading Africa down a dark rabbit hole. Africa will soon be the youngest and most populous continent on earth. If we don't provide the youth with opportunities, the results may be catastrophic. Alternatively, if we take charge of our destinies, get educated on what to expect from government, and collect together so our voices are heard, Africa's future may be bright, with a wealthy, educated workforce who are creating value for the world. And that's the future we should aspire to have. Next time, we'll talk about what African governments actually should be doing. So don't miss out.
Stay tuned. The stream is about to begin.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
How do you buy an apartment in Nairobi for a discount with hassle-free payment terms on installment and a say on the design of your dream property? You buy off-plan, but I know what you're thinking. How can I trust a product if I can't see or touch it? What if the developer doesn't deliver? What if I lose my investment? Don't worry. At Ridgemont, we believe you've earned the right to have the peace of mind that comes from a real estate partner that walks the journey to finding your dream property with you. A solution that's personalized to your preferences, goals, and budget, always working for you, and giving you options so you're never under pressure to make such an important decision that may lead to regrets if done too hastily. It's a little expensive, but it's worth the peace of mind. Would you be willing to explore it? Click the link in the description to register for our exclusive event all about it. Buying off-plan apartments in Nairobi the right way. Coming soon.